Alright guys, I'm going to start off this video. This is when my little brother, who's actually a little bigger, so he's a little bigger brother, Ronnie and I went to upstate New York, beautiful place up there, and I bought a used chipper. Okay, so I got this chipper for $3,500. I got it off a marketplace. The engine came off of a Morbark chipper. The original engine was a I don't know, might have been a John Deere, might have been a Cummins, Perkins, who knows? I have no idea. But the reason why the machine is yellow, the machine's actually a Bandit brand, and the engine is a Morbark off of a 2400 Hurricane. I got this chipper. It was running, but it was making a loud pinging noise, and it basically needed to be overhauled. So basically, when I got this chipper home, you can see how the power unit from the other chipper, the red chipper, which is the Morbark chipper 2400 Hurricane, it was actually a drum chipper that the guy had blown up the drum because they were running stuff through it, and it grabbed a piece of metal and it exploded, and this chipper, it looked like the military was using it for firing practice, or demolition guy was using it for demolition practice. The drum was exploded. However, the power unit, the engine was good, and this yellow chipper, let's just call them red and yellow. The yellow chipper was good, but the engine was blown up. Too many hours running paper pulp logs through it in the woods. So he took the power unit off of that and he put it onto this yellow brush Bandit, and then ran a ton of hours on it, and it was no good. So here, in this picture, you can see I took the engine off to rebuild it. It was worth rebuilding it because I got the chipper itself for so cheap. This here, what I did was, in this picture, was I had my brother run the excavator for me, and I took this 5.9 Cummins 6 TB6. I hope I'm saying that right. TB6, 5.9 Cummins engine off. I did have the oil pan already off because I wanted to see if there was any metal in it. There was no metal in it. This is actually the way that I moved it around. So in this picture here, you can see that I actually, my dad has a walkout basement, and it was, by the time I got this, got all the parts together and everything I needed, after taking the head off of the engine and using a dial bore gauge to check to see if these cylinders were egged out. And there was a lot of play in cylinder number 6. The rings were just really badly worn. And there was a little bit of light scratching, but there was no major scoring or anything. But in this picture here, after I got the engine on a stand and into his walkout basement, which is heated and finished, it's like a workshop, I ended up doing it over at his house because by the time I got the parts and everything, we ended up in the winter. But right here, what I was doing was I was marking the timing gears before I took it all apart, because I don't do this all the time, and it's just better just to do it this way. Okay, here you can see that I went and after using the dial bore gauge and making sure that the block was still good, because this is a non-sleevable engine. What that means is, like your bigger trucks, you will actually have cylinder liners. We call them sleeves, but they're like cylinder linings, and they have O-rings, oil ring. They're like rubber bands almost, and then you press the cylinder liner down into the block. You need you got to know what you're doing when you do that. Some engines you have to check the thousandths of cylinder liner protrusion but that's a whole nother situation. So this one is not like that. This is non-sleevable, but you have to check to make sure that you don't have a bad block, you don't have egged out or bad cylinder walls, or too bad of scratches and everything. So I stripped the block all down, took the dial bore gauge, found out that I didn't have that going on, that these were okay. So then what I did was I used a ball honer. I call it a dingle ball hone, and you run it in and out of the cylinder. You want to start the thing moving first. You want to use some sort of oil. In this case, I sprayed WD-40 all over the ball hone. I call it a dingle ball hone. And then what you do is you start the drill first, and then you go into the cylinder, and then you go down and out. So you get what they call crosshatch, 45-degree crosshatch scratches on the cylinder wall. And what that is that's for oil to get trapped in those scratches for the rings. So you can see my dog just chilling out there. But this is what I was talking about with the walkout basement. I actually took the bucket off the excavator when we got over there, and I got the excavator in his backyard on the nice grass and everything, and then was able to lower the engine block. Actually, the whole engine was all connected when I lowered it down. So I lowered it down in there, and then slid the big tube. I left all that stuff bolted to the engine. I just pulled that handle out and pulled it out of the stand through the big black tube. So then when I lowered it down in there, I brought the red legs down, and then what I did was lowered the engine down in through the bulkhead door, and then took the red leg and stand and slid it over that big black tube, and then put the handle back in. So in this picture here, what I was doing this is when I put the new cylinders. Now I should mention, I bought a rebuilt kit for this for $800, and it came with everything. And I got it off the internet, and I don't know the name of the brand. I really don't know. I have no idea. But when I did this, the connecting rods, I did push the bearings into the connecting rods. But then I took them to a machine shop and had them machined, because you really can't put them on unless you have them machined to make them squared with the connecting rod, if that makes any sense. I wish I had better pictures and a video of all this, but this was actually right before I started YouTube, so I wasn't in the frame of mind of filming or anything, so I'm sorry about that, but I'll try to explain it the best I can. You want your bushing squared with your connecting rod. You don't want a pin in there cockeyed, crooked, or whatever. So what I did was I lightly heated my connecting rods. They call it bluing. You take a torch or whatever. I took a torch, and you just lightly heat it till it starts to turn a faint blue. And then what I did was I made my own press, and that's another thing that's kind of hard to explain. But I made my own press, and then I pressed the bushings in there. And then I took it to the shop and had that done. Right here is when I put the cylinders in, and those holes, the injector holes, those what on the top of the piston where the injector sprays its mist, and you have to keep an eye on when you take them apart which way, because those holes are not centered. They're offset. So and then all that little pink liquid you see in the cylinder holes, that is actually assembly lube. You want to put this all together with assembly lube. So that's what's going on here. So then the other thing I found out from all of these the guys that are really into like the 5.9 Cummins Dodge engines and everything, from watching YouTube. I went on YouTube, and I like to do a lot of research before I do anything with an engine, or a lot of stuff. I'm not I'm not an expert on everything, but you can learn, you know, if you're open-minded and everything, willing to do research, you can learn. Well, one of the things I ended up learning was that this pin that my finger is pointing on here, my pointer finger, that all the Dodge guys call it the killer dowel peg, or killer dowel pin. So there's a dowel pin that goes in there, and I guess it backs out right where that little pointy aluminum thing is pointing. Apparently it comes out, and it falls in between the gears, gets jammed in the gears like where that white paint is, the timing mark, and then it grenades the motor. It just pushes the gears apart and just breaks everything. So they make this killer dowel peg holder, or killer dowel pin holder. And from watching a bunch of the guys that are into like race trucks and all that stuff and engine rebuilds, mostly you'll find like this. I think if it was in a pickup, it would be in a first generation Dodge 5.9. So from watching a bunch of stuff like that, I decided, you don't have to do this, but I decided it sounded pretty scary. Having your engine, anything that's named killer, you know, in an engine is not good. So I decided to buy this little thing that locks that in. And what that is that's just a peg that lines up the timing aluminum timing case, if you want to call it. It's not the cover, it's the case. You line it up with the peg, it goes on, then you put your cam and your crank and all your stuff in, and then you put your cover on after. So that's what that is. That's a precautionary measure. Okay, so this is a picture of my youngest son in the middle, and my dad and my brother. You can figure out which one they are, obviously. And what my son was doing is he has rubber gloves on. He was holding some silicone. I did put some silicone down. Then, as you can see, I put on the oil pan gasket after we had torqued everything and put new oil. I put all kinds. Everything was new. The rebuild kit was all new. I put new oil sprayers on there, new bearings, new rods. Rod bearings, main bearings, the crank bearings, all that. It's just, the kit came with everything. And it was really nice because it was in the wintertime. We were all just kind of like hanging out, drinking coffee, nice heated, warm place, and just rebuilding the motor. And I snapped this shot. Alright, so this is basically what it looked like after I got it mostly back together and painted it. I painted it red. Cummins red or whatever, it matches the engine that's in. At the time, my brother was driving a brand new Peterbilt with the X15, and I thought the engine looked cool red. But originally, this engine here, I think according to the book or whatever, this engine was supposed to be that like Cummins brownish tan. But somebody had already painted it red anyways, and plus I just thought it looked better red. So in this picture here, this is my oldest son, and he's actually the one that helps me do a lot of the computer editing and stuff that you guys see. I'm not super good with computers, but I was teaching him how to weld some more. He's been doing it quite a bit, but this is the back of the chipper. The guy cut off the back because he was running logs through it, like skinny paper logs, paper pulp, I believe he said. I don't know, because we don't have any logging where I live. The closest thing to logging around here is just tree guys cutting down trees, or like clearing a lot for a house. Not very big lots. But here what we were doing is we were doing some welding on that bottom roller. You'll see that later. Alright, so here's when I actually first job I was going to go do with it, just to test it out. My friend had something that he wanted to do at his house, and it wasn't going to be a big deal if I didn't get it done. I didn't want to go test it out at like a paying customer's house in case there was a problem. So this was the first tank of fuel I put in it, and then we went and tested it out at his house. So I mean, as you can see here, the thing measures out to 21.5 inches or 20.5 inches, I believe. I'm trying to remember. I don't know. This is pine, this log you see going through the back of it. I don't ever keep pine. And most of the time we don't run logs that big. I got a guy that has a place that takes the pine logs, and I actually will burn some pine, but you gotta split it and let it dry out longer. But as you can see, I mean, the thing will just eat a pretty decent sized log. But the back of it here, if you notice how close your hands could be to the wheels, I wasn't real happy with that. So what I decided to do, my son actually painted this, painted the whole chipper our color blue, and it took him, I want to say, like between 10 and 12 cans. He works at the hardware store. He'd come home every evening with another can of spray paint, and he would go out there and just paint it. But what I wanted to do here, this is where I started cutting off the back of what they had going on, to try and put it back to its original shape. Yeah, I mean, this is just another picture of the back of it. You can see how dangerous it was because you're not that far from the feed wheels, you know what I mean? And we're going to do a lot of hand feed work with this. I mean, this guy was running really long, skinny logs through it. I don't know what you call it, third growth or whatever, off of a tree plantation. They're not really fat logs. They're just really tall and skinny, with a grapple loader. So there was nobody hand feeding this, but we're going to hand feed it. So if you look, I mean, that's kind of a short distance for your arm to be near, safely. So I had this idea that I was just going to get this 1/4 inch big, you got to buy it in a square. I could have them cut it, but I wanted the extra metal too. I save all the drops after I cut stuff. So this is basically me just marking, and getting ready to cut for the table. So then I figured I was trying to get it fitted in there. It wasn't like 100% perfect. And then I did leave that bottom box tube that was across. I only cut the ones going across the top and the sides. I left the bottom for strength, because later on I was gonna weld some bracing to it. So took some blocks of wood and just kind of like propped it up there, and kind of got it fitted where I needed it before I welded it. So here's kind of like where I'll put the winch back up there to see how much I needed to add at the top to go out. And long story short, I did a lot of thinking, and I'm probably not going to put the winch back on. So I ended up just taking that off. But what you can see here, how I had to add it back out to where the round pipe that is supposed to go around the rim of that chipper opening is supposed to go right under the end of, you can see that little round bit right under where the cable would come out. They're supposed to have a pipe that goes around there and everything. But I'm not gonna do it. I'm actually gonna end up cutting back a little bit more, because for us clearing and loading it with the excavator, the table's good, but the top needs to go back some more. This has no glow plugs, and it is mechanical, and it might not have any juice. Wow. to just, I didn't throttle it up with the blades on, but must be hitting that piece of wood. So that big disc comes around and slams that wood against the anvil, that adjustable anvil. See that piece of anvil, metal? They call that an anvil. And it jams that wood into there, and it cuts it on an angle. Which they say, has it got leaves in there? Yeah, that's leaves you're hearing. But that's how it cuts it. You see the knives right there that are bolted on. And now that it's dead, I'll give you a closer look. So, it's pretty dark in here. The only thing that stinks about a disc chipper, guys that have them know, you have this. You have this little triangular pocket where not everything goes through until the next piece comes along and pushes this. I'm actually going to take this in the house and put it on the wood stove. That's some good burning wood. But a drum chipper. Where's the dog? There he is. Got to keep an eye on him. Oh, look at all his sticks. Get him. Get his sticks. So anyways, a drum chipper, the drum comes around this way as the log, I'll show you, gets fed over. It would be like this. It goes in, the drum comes down and chips off like this. They typically make nicer chips because this one chips on an angle. Oh, you want that one? Oh, you want that one? Which one you want? Make up your mind. You want this one? You want this one? Go and get it. Alright. What, you want me to throw it? Oh, I'm trying to make a wood chipper video here. So, the thing about chipping on an angle like this is actually they say it's easier. I notice it. I've used the drum chippers. This is very fast. Like, you know, it's like when you take a hatchet and you smack on an angle a log. Think of it like that, on an angle, versus the butt end. However, the drum chippers, because they come down and go like that, they make nicer chips. This makes, like, this chips off the side of the log on an angle, so it makes like these long shards. I don't sell wood chips, so I don't care what they look like. They say this is better on fuel consumption to chip on an angle. This thing is pretty good on fuel, to be honest with you. Let's open it up and look at the knives. Alright, so I took that pin out of there. This is an older machine. Some of the newer machines have an electronic sensor, so when you pull that pin out of there, there's a wire that runs down and goes to the engine and it shuts the machine off for safety. So, see, some idiot parked this in the woods, out of the way of the yard, but in the trees. And by some idiot, I mean me. Come on. This thing's really heavy. I might need to get down. Alright. Now, you can see this has huge bearings. And there's a grease, you can grease that one, but this one has
a remote grease line to that one. Goes out to here. I greased, those were brand new when I got the machine. The guy had replaced those, which I think is kind of funny because he had a blown engine, but he had new bearings, whatever. Probably a lie. But this is it. How this works is basically you have this big, like 1-inch disc. You know, it's like roughly an inch. Then you have this, you know, that's probably like 2-inch solid steel plate bolted to it. Okay? There's one on the other side. This is perfect, so one side mirrors the other. And then you have the chip throwing pocket. So this is the chip throwing pocket. So everything comes in here, gets thrown out here, and then up the chute and out. But this is what I was saying, like stuff, leftover stuff at the end of the job always gets stuck. You know, stuck in the knife. I don't take it apart to clean it out, because the next time you fire it up and run a piece of wood through it, it'll go right through it. But those are the knives. There's 3 sets, one on top, one on the middle, and one on the bottom. There's a short one on the bottom, 2 bolts, then 2 3-bolt ones, and they are Allen key. And I put the big Allen socket, but you can see the ends. Believe it or not, that's actually not bad. There's a little chip, but that's actually not bad. The closer you go to the inside, the sharper they get. When you get to the outside, the duller they get. Because as you can see from that stuff we just pulled out, a lot of times your stuff is doing most of its chipping in this area, you know. But I just gotta keep calling the dog because I don't want the neighbors. Everybody's afraid of him because he looks scary, but he's a big baby. So this is the chip throwing pocket. Now, if I can turn it into that, there's a hole down in there. Going that way, you can put a bar in here to lock this while you're tightening up the knives. And you have to set the anvil according to, see how the stuff gets in the end? See how most of the machines does its chipping in this area till you get into something big? But it's like centrifugal force will throw it to the end anyways. This is where I welded it. Like, I don't know, last winter or the winter before. It had a crack through the disc part, but not through this plate. It was just cracked through there. So what I did was I put a big V in it. And I put a torch on it, heated up to 450 degrees with the torch and the little handheld laser thermometer. And then what I did was I built it all back out with 80-18 high tensile strength rods. You can't use a wire welder on heavy iron like this. You know, the thing of it is you don't want to throw this down in there, because when you go to start this and engage the clutch, just a little stick down in there will jam this wheel, because this wheel takes a lot to get going, and then it works off of inertia. So on this side too, you have another big heavy steel plate. So a friend of mine were goofing around with this, and we got this spinning by hand, and we were holding sticks right down there, and it was just snapping them off. So I mean, if you got this spinning, that's probably a weight where they balanced the disc. But I don't think this disc is perfectly balanced anymore. It can't be, because I mean, look at it. Like this thing was wearing. You know, I mean, maybe they wear evenly. Let's see. The other one might match that one. But if you got your hand, I mean, I guess they're close. You know, but they're definitely not. They're definitely not perfectly balanced after being. See how it's rolling back. That wouldn't do that if that was perfectly balanced. It would just stop. But I think, from the looks of it, it has sawdust built up on the back side of this one. So that's all dust. That's what was in the radiator. When you have a chipper, you can't just park it and, you know, forget about it. I mean, whenever I know I have to go out, I clean this ahead of time. You know, not that. I'm not going to clean that. It's just dust. That'll just vibrational loosen that up and that'll blow out again. See, there's another one. You know, more dust. Sawdust. So that's probably why it's not spinning perfect. It's probably off balance by just the tiniest little bit. But when you do your anvil down there, and you set your anvil to these knives, a friend of mine said he adjusts it with a credit card. That means every time this passes through the knife passes through the, I mean, you're supposed to use a feeler gauge, and there is a thing, but my buddy worked for a tree company like his whole life, and he said they just stick a credit card in between it, and he said, and that's what they go by, a credit card. If it's too tight, you'll smack your, you'll just burn the end of the wood if it's too tight, or like this one here where the anvil moved, and this old knife actually hit the anvil and broke a giant chunk off. So I don't want that to happen again. I can't get that piece out of there. We're gonna have to just leave it till the next time we chip some wood. But I don't know how to explain to you on camera how heavy this disc is. And once you get it spinning, you can't stop it. Like it takes a lot to stop it. I'm just rolling the thing. So you don't ever want to open this unless this thing is dead stop, and the key should be in your pocket. The key to the machine. If you're on site, I'm alone in my backyard, but it just folds over like that. Oh, I probably wanted to show you the anvil. Let me open this back up so it gets some light down in there. It's pretty dark in there. This rides on 2 Torflex axles, meaning it doesn't have springs. I wonder if I could get my cell phone out to use the flashlight so I could show you guys the anvil I was talking about. Okay. Plus, I like to have my cell phone out in case I gotta call the wife. Or 911. One or the other. I barely fit in this thing. Okay. Let me get comfortable here. Okay, so... Nope, that's my phone. See that bar? That is the anvil. Okay? What was happening was the wood was coming down the wall here, and it was hitting. Come on, get off me! The dog's trying to climb on me. He's on my legs. Get off me! Damn it, I'm in the chipper. I do have the key in my pocket, just so you know. And I have it safety pinned up, and my wife knows where I am. So the log was coming down this wall here, and it was smashing into this anvil, the old one, and breaking the bolts and forcing this plate into there. So I welded a bunch of beads here with some hard face to build this up to get the log out more so it goes by the outside of the anvil so it don't hit the anvil. So I built it out quite a bit. I don't know if you can see. I'd have to go back so you can see. I know for sure, see, that it... I don't know how to put this on the... I know for sure from where my finger is that it passes over, you know what I mean? It doesn't touch. This is in a little bit, so the log won't hit the side of it. It'll go pass by it. That's why you gotta have a welder. So, if you're gonna own one of these. So the way that this works is, let me see if I can turn the disc from down in here. This comes by like that, and the chip goes through there. So see, that anvil needs to be adjusted. That's too much of a gap. I got to adjust it again. You see? I don't know if you can see it this way. Oh, stupid phone. Oop, dropped my phone in the water. Hope the iPhone is waterproof. But see that gap? How that is more than a credit card width when it goes by. So I'm gonna have to adjust that anvil again, which it takes two people. I'm gonna get out of this thing. Gotta back it up. You do not want to go through a chipper, I'll tell you that much. You probably break your legs and your bones before you even get to the blades. Look at this guy. He's so excited. So what you do is you go in there and you hold the credit card or the feeler gauge. Well, I'm probably going to use a feeler gauge next time because the credit card kind of didn't work very well. Well, I mean it did, but whatever. I'll try the other way. And then you have somebody loosen this up, and you got to undo this bolt, the middle bolt, and the top bolt. And while you're in there with the feeler gauge or something, you have someone turn these bolts and adjust this steel plate, the anvil, inward. Okay? That's just they put a little plug in there, you can take it out, and you can actually put a rod in there to hold on to it. That's all that's for, believe it or not. See, this chipper here used to have auto feed blocks. Somebody took them off, and they, you know what I mean? What auto feed is it will automatically start and stop the feed rollers as the RPMs of the machine die down, so you don't bog down the machine. But it didn't have it when I bought it, and I looked into putting it back on. It was kind of expensive, and unless you're chipping big logs, this thing eats through all the brush. Like, you don't really have to do that. And plus, we use it for clearing, and we just have somebody with the hard hat and the mesh face screen just sit at the controller and just start and stop it if we're eating on a big log. Now here's the thing. You might be saying to yourself, geez, why doesn't this guy just burn? Why don't you just burn the stuff? Why? You know, it seems like quite an expense to own one of these things, and you're always welding on it, and you're always having to buy hydraulic parts for it and everything. Why don't you just burn the branches and burn all the brush? Well, because I live in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts, let me take these out. I live in Massachusetts, right? So Massachusetts is stupid overregulated on everything. I was burning one time in the Coast Guard. I also live near Air Force Base, Otis. So the Coast Guard was flying over, and they actually called the fire department. The fire department came out, and the fire department actually threatened to shut us down or whatever, you know, whatever they do. Give me a ticket and all that, or a fine or whatever they call it. I don't know what they call it, because I talked to the guy about it and said, you know, I'll just put it out. So I put it out, and then I had to truck it to the dump. Well, here's the thing, for my truck, you're looking at like $100 a load, okay, to get rid of the stuff. I heard out in California, it's like some loads are like $200 a load for a same size truck. So $100 a load, and a lot of clearing jobs would be 20, 30 loads versus this thing here, and they'll take the chips for like $10. I can dump my truck for like 10 to 20 bucks, depending on, you know, where I go. And some places will take the chips for free. So, I mean, you do the math, like, over the course of the year, this thing paid for itself. So, for me, it is aggravating. I watch YouTube videos with guys that are they go to clear something, you know, and they live somewhere else in the country, and they just push the stuff into a pile and they light it on fire and they burn it. I tried that here in oh no. Massachusetts and everything has laws that says you can't burn right away clearing or land clear material or whatever. So, like I said, eventually I'm gonna move. I hate it here. I think we're overregulated. I think this state sucks.